Yeah.
So we'll come to fintech now. So one interesting fact that I would like to share with you is that the fintech adoption rate in India, it stands at 84%. This basically means that people in India are more open to fintech, more open to adopting digital payment solutions and digital banking services. And this figure of 84%, it is the highest in the world. It is the highest figure in the world, and consequently, India has turned out to be the third largest fintech market globally, and it is one of the most funded sectors in India. The maximum foreign investment in India comes into fintech, second only to e-commerce. E-commerce is the most funded sector, and fintech is the second most funded sector. Now,
So
fintech it's
these are not emerging tech anymore. They are like mainstream in India. You want to be a technology lawyer, e-commerce and fintech industries, you must learn to cater to. Okay.
absolutely, and fintech companies that have their home in India are actually touching major heights. Razorpay, Cred, they have huge foreign financiers. They raise a huge amounts during their funding rounds, and they have a great amount of penetration. Also, the market itself is very receptive to these players. So, and of course, government initiatives, there are various government initiatives at play. The role of demonetization cannot be discounted. Demonetization really pushed India's fintech industry forward. So there are various opportunities in fintech law also. Fintech itself is another kind of umbrella, and it has its hand in various different sectors such as insurance, banking, lending, payments. So there are different subdivisions within fintech itself, and according to these various subdivisions, you can zero down on a fintech role that is more suited to you. One problem that lawyers face while understanding fintech is that they believe it to exist in some sort of incorporeal space, while it's not so much. It's not true. And any fintech company, it will ultimately be registered either as a company or as an NBFC, and accordingly it will have to adhere to guidelines given by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs or by the RBI as applicable.
So this is the work that you need to start learning how to do. Depending, like when you have a fintech startup, you have to understand ki what is the business model. Uske baad, you have to see how to structure it. Like a normal startup, you have to just incorporate as a private limited company and you can start. But यहाँ पर banking का, RBI regulations, NBFC का aspect, funding कहाँ से आएगा, ये सब सोचना होता है. Okay, so you have to think additionally here. तो इसका structuring role बहुत important है. अगर आप बैंक्स के साथ काम कर रहे हो तो आपको बहुत क्लियरली ये देखना होगा कि कौन सा फंक्शन आप ले रहे हो, क्योंकि आरबीआई स्टॉप करता है आउटसोर्सिंग को. सो अ बैंक और एनबीएफसी कैन आउटसोर्स ओनली नॉन की फंक्शंस. कौन सा फंक्शन किया है, कौन सा नहीं है, की मतलब जो इंपॉर्टेंट फंक्शन होता है, कोर बैंकिंग फंक्शन नहीं आउटसोर्स हो सकता. तो आपको वो चेक करना होता है एज अ लॉयर कि ये जो टेक स्टार्टअप कर रही है ये कौन सा फंक्शन कर सकती है ताकि ये सही से वर्क करेगा. क्योंकि वो आउटसोर्सिंग हो गया तो क्या होगा कि वेंचर कैपिटलिस्ट विल गेट अ लीगल ओपिनियन और पता चलेगा कि ये तो बहुत रिस्की बिजनेस मॉडल है, इन्वेस्ट नहीं करेगा. बट आप थोड़े से ट्विक्स करा दोगे तो वो बिजनेस मॉडल सेफ हो जाएगा. इफ इट इज बिकम सेफ, इसका मतलब क्या है, आपको एडवाइस का तो मिल सकता है, यू विल गेट योर फीस फॉर इट, बट ऑल द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स आफ्टर द एडवाइस दैट स्टार्ट बिकॉज द मॉडल इज सेफ, दैट वर्क बिगिंस एंड देन यू आर द गो टू पर्सन. ठीक है, सो दैट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
Yes, structuring the business is extremely important, and also because it leads to stamp duty implications. Stamp duty, which is a state subject, is also related to where you structure a business and how you'll set up your corporate entities. The second major role that will come into the picture is dealing with your sectoral regulators. Like if we're talking about the insurance field, or we're talking about the banking field, or we're talking about shares and debentures. So we have the RBI, we have IRDAI, we have SEBI, we have these regulators who control this field. So a part of your role would involve dealing with these regulators and making sure that your company, your processes, they comply with the various directions and guidelines issued by these bodies. Yes, sir. RBI.
RBI has guidelines on that. So if you are working in fintech or for Indian companies, that's one thing you will see if there is a fintech angle. If there is no fintech angle, you should know that Indian startups now are catering to international market. And there are foreign startups also, but Indian startup, if it sells to any European customer, any European client, they will need to do a GDPR check. Okay. and that is where the opportunity is. ओके, जीडीपीआर इज स्टैंडर्ड एंड आपको पता होगा फॉरेन क्लाइंट क्या बोलता है, हैव यू गॉट आईएसओ सर्टिफिकेशन? आईएसओ सर्टिफिकेशन में बहुत पैरिटी है. आईएसओ सर्टिफिकेशन होता है आपके डेटा प्रोटेक्शन पे एक स्टैंडर्ड है उनका 27,000 वाला, उस दैट टेल्स हाउ द कंपनी इज प्रोटेक्टिंग डेटा. वो फॉरेन क्लाइंट पूछ लेता है आपसे इंडिया में. अब उसके लिए आपको एक्चुअली जीडीपीआर से कंप्लाइंट होना पड़ता है, मतलब वो बहुत सिमिलर है. तो आप आईएसओ कंप्लाइंट हो तो जीडीपीआर कंप्लाइंट भी हो, तो आप जीडीपीआर पढ़ोगे ही पढ़ोगे. ओके, तो जीडीपीआर बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट इस पर्सपेक्टिव से है. रामनाथ, आर यू फॉलोइंग? Tell me how many of you are following. India doesn't have a, this is the biggest myth, okay? India doesn't have a GDPR law, that's a data protection law. But this is why GDPR work is damn important for any tech lawyer. And if you want to do international work, this is critical.
And
India has no data protection law, right? Other than the few principles in IT Act. But because of this nature of the business, Indian companies are catering to international clients, to foreign clients. For that, you need to know GDPR. If you want to do foreign clients ka work, then you need to know GDPR. Okay, and India will have a GDPR, a personal data protection law in the time to come. When that's going to happen, we don't exactly know. Okay, drafting outsourcing agreements.
So this is also a major part of your work as far as fintech is concerned. A lot of functions, not the core functions, but a lot of functions by both banks and NBFCs are outsourced to third parties. Say, for example, recovering the money, recovering the lent money, collection, marketing, branding, all of these functions are outsourced. And so when you're drafting such agreements, you have to be cognizant of what guidelines RBI has given. जब आप ये contract बनाओगे, तब आपको लगेगा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ड्राफ्टिंग नॉलेज तो लगेगा, प्लस यू हैव टू बी अवेयर अबाउट व्हाट आरबीआई हैज सेड इन दिस रिगार्ड, and you will have to incorporate those clauses, those conditions inside your contracts. And the same is true for other contracts that you will enter into for fintech companies, such as your platform terms and conditions, your privacy policies, your data policies. There are an n number of contracts that any application or website has to pass. So all of this will be useful when you do that. Last but not the least, another major factor that you have to pay attention to is the handling of disputes. Now, the handling of disputes itself is changing. It can be done through alternate dispute resolution, online dispute resolution, through existing regimes such as your RBI Ombudsman, your Consumer Protection Law, and you would have to have a handle over those in context of your company, in context of the technology company that you are working for. So again, there are lending platforms such as Faircent, such as Rupeek. Rupeek is a company which gives online gold loans. Faircent is a company which provides B2B loans. And these typically outsource the function of recovery and collection to third parties. Again, so if you're interested in banking and finance law, then a fintech role would be very easy for you to transition to. And so when Rupeek and Faircent are outsourcing these activities, they have to comply with the outsourcing guidelines that are given by RBI. As part of compliance with such guidelines, they have to include certain clauses. Contract में कुछ ऐसे conditions उनको डालने ही पड़ेंगे, compulsorily डालने पड़ेंगे, because RBI guidelines say so.
और इसमें क्या लिखा है कि बोर्ड अप्रूव्ड पॉलिसी होनी चाहिए इनकी. अब आपको वो पॉलिसी बनाना आता है, बोर्ड अप्रूव पॉलिसी अगर बनी हुई है और आप टेक स्टार्टअप को पूछ रहे हो, चलो इस बैंक की या इस कंपनी की, इस एनबीएफसी की बोर्ड अप्रूव पॉलिसी मांगो, देन यू कैन टेल देम दैट व्हाई द एनबीएफसी शुड डील विद दिस स्टार्टअप. द स्टार्टअप यू आर एक्टिंग फॉर विल से हाँ भाई यू आर गिविंग मी वैल्यू, दिस इज वेरी गुड, क्योंकि अब इसको बताने से आवर प्रपोजल हैज पास थ्रू. Okay, so that is the important thing to know.
They have to include clauses allowing the RBI to inspect documents, allowing the RBI to conduct audits. They have to ensure customer confidentiality even after the contract has expired, and they have to adhere to various data localization norms.
So your customer confidentiality is very different from this one, business secrets. आपका business data का क्या होता है पता है? कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्सपायर हो गया, 6 महीने, 1 साल, 2 साल बाद तुम्हारा आपका बिजनेस कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी चला जाएगा. क्यों? क्योंकि इंफॉर्मेशन पुरानी है, उसका कमर्शियल रेलेवेंस नहीं है अब. बट कस्टमर डेटा को ऐसे नहीं कर सकते. कस्टमर डेटा हैज टू स्टे confidential. तो ये सब चीजें if you know ना, then you will know. Otherwise, what you will do, you will take a M&A का confidentiality clause and चिपकाओ it here. So you can't
that
do
will
that.
not work. That
Yeah.
will not work. And so on and so forth. Depending on the transaction you're going into, there will be some kind of RBI guideline that will guide you through that transaction. And so fintech was one major portion of the work that we do here.